Coming to you live from my apartment. It's Rob Has a Podcast, and now here's a guy who's barely medically cleared to do this podcast. I'm Rob Cesternino. I can't even say that straight. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Wednesday night, September 13th, 1 week away from the Big Brother finale, where soon one man with a beard will be crowned the winner of Big Brother, and that will happen in 1 week's time. And we will talk about the latest person to go out of the house, believing that she was going to be in a good spot until ultimately Paul told Alex that she would not. So we'll talk about that all on the night that Alex has left the Big Brother house. First off, a man who for some time has been looking forward to this night. We'll find out if it was as sweet as he anticipated. Brent, welcome on. Brent, how are you?
Doing great, Rob. Nice to be with everybody tonight.
Yes. Brett, do you like my wallpaper here that I have framed my copy issue episode number 1 of Potty Mouth Comic?
I love it that Julie asked him that question at the end when they were obviously filling time, and you could see the look on his face was so irritated. And somebody else tweeted this, and I apologize who I can't give credit to, but they said, how dare they do anything that Paul doesn't like when they've given everything to him this season. So I thought that was pretty apropos.
Okay. Another person very sad tonight to lose her favorite house guest. Melissa Deni is here. Melissa, how are you?
I am fighting back tears because that really is the trend for tonight, is just uncontrollable sobbing. I feel like every single person on the episode was just like bawling their eyes out in every clip. So, I'm just going to keep that up and do the same. Yeah,
only Kevin didn't cry tonight. I think he's the only person on this show that didn't cry. So sad night for everybody, but we have a lot to get to. Hashtag RHAP. As I mentioned earlier tonight already, that 1 week from tonight we will have our finale coverage. I am going to be at the live finale. I will be in the backyard once again this year to ask questions to the house guests, and I've opened it up to you guys. I've gotten a lot of feedback from people say, hey, I'm very frustrated with this season, so I have a lot of things I got to get off my chest, so feel free. Send me your questions. You can email the show, bbfinale@robhasawebsite.com. We're putting together a list of stuff that you want to know from the house guest. If you have a pointed question, you think that maybe we won't ask it, give it a shot. Send it in, bbfinale@robhasawebsite.com. We got 30 questions from Brent already.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just making up number 31. bbfinale@robhasawebsite.com. Alex, why are you such a sheep? Raven, your 5,000 diseases aren't in any medical text. Can you please tell us about them? Oh, hi. Yeah.
Well, that was the whole summer, Brent. Please tell us about your diseases. So we'll see how many answers we can find out 1 week from tonight. And of course, the LFC, we will have live coverage from the finale here live after the episode coming up on finale night. So all that is 1 week away. 2 weeks from tonight is the Survivor premiere, so a lot on our plate. But let's get into the task at hand, talking about the eviction of Alex. I feel like that we really looked forward to this for a while, and I feel like that we got a bit of a short shrift here tonight in terms of Alex going from Paul is my ride or die to learning out that she had been betrayed, and I felt like that we really yada yada through her interview with Julie. Melissa, were you left satisfied in any way with tonight's episode?
I like how you say in any way, because no, I was not satisfied in any way. Not a single way was I satisfied. It was just like, I felt like they could have done so much more with it. I mean, instead of having this whole like betrayal edit or anything like that, it was just like, wow, everyone's so sad. What a bummer. And then we had all these like music cues with like this like pregnant pauses where it was just like we were supposed to reflect or something. Like, I don't even know. It was not what I was hoping for. I mean, I honestly thought that they were going to show Alex, hula hooping in the backyard, giving her rant or something, but they didn't give anything to show that Alex was mad or anything. She was pissed at one point, and they didn't show that at all. It was just like her crying and Paul crying and everybody crying, and that was that.
Yeah, Rob,
Yep.
there really wasn't any excuse for it either because this is taped. I mean, every other show, I understand on eviction night, it's a live show. You've got to, work on the time and you've got to time things out in a certain way so you give yourself enough time to complete the HOH competition. But this thing is taped, so they had plenty of time to get in what they wanted.
Yeah, this was terrible. That they really they spent 5 minutes just killing time at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they have talked at Alex for a few more minutes and talked about, boy, Alex, you really blew this one, didn't you, this summer, right? You thought Paul, Paul was your buddy, right? You thought so too, right?
I guess
you did.
But Rob, in order to do that, they have to essentially expose things to her that Paul has not exposed at this point. I mean, he basically tried to cushion it as much as possible and tried to blame it on Christmas and Josh. And of course, she wasn't buying that. But the show has to treat it in such a way where they can't expose things to her.
I would have settled for Julie Chen. So what do you think happened?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, just some open-ended question.
Did that work out? Did it work? Do you think that worked out? Yeah. Oh, I mean, well, Julie is, she can really, just get their wheels turning a little bit with the look. This was Julie Chen asking Christmas about what did you think of the comic books. Here was her question to Christmas.
But I love the fact that they made me a lunatic.
I'm sorry. That was the response to the question, and this was Julie Chen asking Paul about what is it like to be in the house.
Words can't explain how bizarre and insane it is to be in this spot again for the second year in a row. I didn't think I could do it.
Well, you did.
Well, you did.
You did.
That was like last week with Raven when Raven was going on and she's like, there you go. So even Julie is beyond frustrated with these house guests. But yeah, I don't understand why they didn't spend more time with Alex throughout this whole episode tonight, because I really would have liked to have seen more of Alex just coming to grips with everything. I thought Paul got a great at it tonight, and I really thought that maybe it was going to be going in a different direction, Brent. When we saw earlier, we saw the clip of Paul slapping Josh across the face, which of course ended up making TMZ earlier this week. And then I thought that, maybe we're going to be getting a negative Paul edit, but they really, and again, I don't know how much of this was real and how much wasn't, played into the, Paul with a heavy heart has to let his friend down. He's never had to let somebody down like this, and he had genuine friendship with Alex, and he just had to do this because his friends and family back home, this wasn't a selfish move, that everybody would say to him, you did the same thing you did last year if you didn't do this.
Yeah, I wasn't buying it. I mean, you were actually buying it because I wasn't. I didn't understand what he was trying to get across. It seemed to me like he was being defensive because, everything, and I'm currently arguing with Taryn on Twitter about this. Taryn's like, these were genuine tears from Paul. If you don't know anything about Paul, you know that this was genuine. And I'm like, I'm sure he likes Alex genuinely as a friend, but what I saw in the diary room was just acting, and that was all it was, because Paul had just come from the veto competition and saw that, again, he's not being depicted in the way that he wanted to. And believe me, that irritated the F out of him. He ranted for hours about, why is it potty mouth?
So he cried about potty mouth more than letting out.
So mad about that. He was just like, where is this coming from? Like, am I being depicted as the villain this season? Well, if I'm the villain, then oh well. And then he goes into the diary room and says, well, it's just been really tough for me. And, Alex is a friend of mine and I really feel bad for her. Just like previously when he was, riling everybody up against Cody and Jessica. And then the bullhorn comes over and says, Paul's a bully. Then he goes in the diary room, one episode later and says, well, I've worked really hard all season because I've had a target on my back. And that's the reason I've had to play really hard. Like, it's just an act, Taryn. There is nothing real here.
All right. Don't subtweet Taryn.
Well, no, Taryn is currently rebutting these arguments comments in the chat room. So Taryn's getting his little words in as well.
All right, that's not helping the people that are listening to the podcast. So let's.
I'm just telling you.
Keep the conversation pointed at me.
I can keep the conversation pointed at you, and I'm telling you that I didn't buy anything that Paul was selling. I understand where you're coming from, saying, Melissa, maybe you disagree with me. I don't know. I didn't believe anything that was coming from Paul.
Well, okay. I think that it's possible that the tears themselves were genuine, but I think the words coming out of his mouth and his reasoning for why he was crying wasn't genuine. I don't think he was legitimately sad that Alex was sad. I think that he was sad that he had to do this and potentially lose a jury vote and all this sort of stuff. I don't think that he genuinely felt horrible for Alex. I don't know. I just don't really buy it. But also, it's based off of his behavior the rest of the season and last season. So, I mean, it's tough for me to sit there and be like, oh, and now all of a sudden he's genuine and he really cares about Alex, when the whole time behind her back, he's been like bashing her. So I think that the tears themselves were genuine, but I think he was crying about other things and then pretending that they were about good things to be crying about.
So you're saying that everything is the truth except for what was coming out of his mouth? Is that it?
Right. Well, yeah, no, I think that he wanted to make himself look good, and he was thinking, these are the ways that I can make myself look good. These are the things I can say to make myself look good in the eyes of America, because clearly they think I'm the villain of the season. So how do I turn this around? And,
No, I think I agree with Melissa. I think it's probably more down the middle of, I think he's trying to manipulate the TV audience. Is he tapping into some genuine emotion? Probably. Like, I don't think that this is one of those things where it's like that he's fake crying. I think he's probably, it's an emotional season, but is he ever will we ever see Paul hang out with Alex after this game is over? Absolutely not. That if she gets a return text message from Paul, from September 21st on, I think it will be a minor miracle.
Yeah, look, my biggest problem was I felt like he was boo-hooing and crying about the fact more that he had no place to hide, Melissa. Like he's been able to hide this whole time his true intentions. He's been able to vote opposite what was really going to happen, even though he knew that was what he wanted to have happen. And this time there was no place for him to hide. He had to expose himself to Alex, and even then he was not honest with her. So you saw him in the diary room saying, this is the first time, I've had to really go to Alex and tell her the truth. I just wanted to tell her the truth. And then he didn't tell her the truth, Rob. He didn't tell her nothing that was true.
No. All right. Yeah. So, Melissa, tell me, did you find it interesting that who was comforting Paul as soon as he was crying?
Christmas.
Yes, and Christmas was very. Oh, Paul, come here, Paul. Yeah. It's like, hey, Christmas, watch where those hands are, Christmas.
She's like, I'll take care of you.
And then again, when after he won the music, like, I won the HOH. Christmas is in there for the hug. Brent, this is getting very inappropriate. Christmas.
Well, I mean, just like right before the feeds cut yesterday, she was spooning with Paul and definitely touching him all over in the bed. Josh at one point even said to both of them, "So, are you guys in a showmance?" And of course, they were both like, "No." Yeah. But I mean, like, it kind of looks like a duck and talks like a duck. I'm thinking it's a duck.
Mm-hmm. Christmas, let's talk about her from earlier in this episode. So you had that conversation where Josh and Christmas were talking right before Paul comes out and slaps Josh across the face. And so that Josh says to Christmas, so are you going to take me to the final two? And she's like, yeah, I don't want to say. I don't want to, like, what is that, Brent? I mean, how could you play that worse?
You couldn't play it worse. And the sad part is that Josh, even though she told him that, Josh is still going to take her to the final two, even in spite of her playing it that badly.
Yeah. And what does she say to that? She's like, I just don't want to see you make a mistake for your game. What? Yeah. What? Christmas, well, I mean, okay, we get it. You're in love with Paul, but you could still tell Josh you'd go to the final two with him.
And it was so interesting to hear this, too, because she admitted, and it was nice for me to hear it, because I've never heard it before from her, that she would likely or have a good chance to beat Josh in a final two matchup. I've never heard Christmas really articulate that thought process before. But then she's saying to Josh, no, please don't take me to the final two. You really need to take Paul. It's better for your game. Taryn called this, I'll give him credit for this. He called this, 4 weeks ago, where he said that Christmas isn't playing for the win anymore. She just wants her team to get to the final two. And I feel like that's all I can use to explain this, because
we used to say her team was including Josh, that I think we can sort of write that off now, that her team is her and Paul.
I guess, but she does really care for Josh, and you heard her say that she would beat Josh, and I think she knows she would lose to Paul. I'm hoping if she ever got that opportunity, not that it's likely, but if she did, to choose at Final 3 of who to go to at Final 2, I'm hoping she would choose the money over the man, but I don't know.
She would not.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. She would not.
No, I think she just wants them to go to the final 2. I think she doesn't care about herself going to the final 2 at all. I think she wants those 2 to go, because I think that she doesn't care about if she wins, or she doesn't care about the money. She cares about promoting her book deal and getting exposure and, you know, getting more followers on Instagram. And I think that she sees it as a win the longer she stays in the house, and the longer potentially she could win, you know, America's Favorite. Who knows? She just wants the exposure, and I think that that's considered a win for her.
Well,
she doesn't need to win the actual game.
Christmas can forget about America's Favorite, because I think it's all locked up, because Alex very smartly tonight used her platform to lobby America and the house guests for America's Favorite Player. Here was Alex in her speech tonight.
The best thing that I can ask you guys now is on live feeds, maybe throw out everyone, like now and again, like Alex for America's Favorite, that would be chill.
Alex for America's Favorite, that would be chill, Brent.
I actually didn't hear that, and I knew I didn't hear it. I was like, what did she say? But then, like, I was listening to the rest of it, and I kind of forgot to go back and hear it. So now I'm hearing it for the first time, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen that before, where someone has used their goodbye message to beg for votes for America's Favorite house guest. I know she's been saying it on the live feeds. She's basically been saying the same thing on the live feeds, but I've never heard it in a live eviction. That's pretty effing amazing.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, it wasn't directed to America. It was directed to the house guests. Hey, on the live feeds, can you please tell people to vote for me?
The best thing that I can ask you guys now is on live feeds, maybe throw out everyone, like now and again, like Alex for America's Favorite, that would be chill.
That would be chill.
Like, why not tell us directly? You're literally talking to America.
You are on live television, broadcast to 6 million people.
And instead she's like, why don't you guys do it?
Yeah, when you're on the live feeds, please tell everybody on the live feeds to vote for me.
I don't understand it. Like, I already hate when people campaign for America's Favorite on the live feeds.
Right.
But this just reached a whole new level, and I really don't like it.
Yeah, the people who win America's Favorite house guests are never the people that think they're going to win or even ask for it. It's just that's just how the world works. I don't understand why people don't get that. She says she's a fan of Big Brother. Obviously not. Otherwise, she would know that the people who won on her favorite season, BB16, are the people that really didn't think they had a shot. Like Donnie and Nicole, they were never talking about America's Favorite house guest when they were named to the top 3 for that. So that's just not how the world works, honey.
Yeah. Well, that'll be fun to see come finale night. I mean, it was fun to see a little bit of Alex learning her fate tonight. Alex really was upset when Paul first told her the bad news. This is what she had to say.
You think it's easy for me to throw comments to you? Do you think it's easy when I know the answer not to do it? Like, it's hard. Like, I'm so stupid.
Yeah. That's what, Paul, do you think it was easy to throw these competitions to you? Do you think it was easy when I knew the right answer?
She contended that she threw this veto to Paul, that she was concerned about both of them being safe. Ooh. That's why she said that she walked to the buzzer, that she didn't hit the buzzer beforehand. You heard her acknowledge in the little montage there that she didn't hit the buzzer until she was absolutely 100% positive that they were all right. So I don't know where the real truth lies. I think it's very hard to throw a veto competition, especially a timed one like this. But if she had any part in her own demise here, then she's really going to have to pay the price for that.
Also, going to multiple tiebreaker rounds, how is that throwing it? For the other competitions that she was saying, like, I threw that to you, I threw that to you. She said that like multiple times. And it's like, if you take it all the way to a tiebreaker, that's not throwing it. That's just you losing.
Yeah, but Whistlenut said, what she was looking to him. So eventually, she's I guess decided to get the wrong answer.
Like, I'm so stupid.
Yeah. So very sad. I really had thought this season, in the beginning of the season, that she had a chance to really do something and make a run. But no, she really just, once she made that bond with Paul, there was no turning back.
Yeah, there really was. I have to say, I agree. At the beginning of the season, when she won HOH and she walked in the storage room, Melissa, and she said, I'm going to make a big move. And, Jessica was still in the house at the time. Cody had just been evicted. And she's like, I'm going to go after Dominique, who at the time was like right in the middle of the big alliance in the house. I thought, okay, I like this girl. She's, she's at least a gamer. She's going to do something. And she's playing it smart by also putting Jessica up on the block. I liked what she did that week. And then after that, she just became a Paul minion, and there was no hope for her.
No, I just remember we were desperately trying, like, even when she started joining up with Paul, and even when she started telling Jason, like, we got to do what Paul says. I kept hoping that, like, okay, but she's just playing this. She's telling Jason to do what Paul says, so that way Paul thinks they're with him, and then they can make a move later. And then it was just like one after another, disappointment after a disappointing move that she made. And it was just like, you could tell that, oh, wait, that was all just hope, and it's gone, and she just is a Paul minion.
Well, and she not only screwed her game, but you heard her in the diary room. She really was holding herself accountable for Whistlenut's game, and she should, because he was the outgoing HOH. He was the one who kept her safe during that week. Then she decided to throw the competition, a running competition, to a girl who has one broken leg, and let her win, and then decide to take out Jason, and she never really wrapped her head around that. And then when she got HOH during the double eviction, she didn't even hold Christmas accountable. Instead, she listened again to Paul and did exactly what he wanted. So, I know it was sad watching her on the show, coming to grips with the fact that Paul had betrayed her, but she was such a Paul minion the entire time that I was actually laughing the entire way, and I have to believe that Melissa was with me on this.
Absolutely. Like, she deserved everything that she got. I mean, it's one of those things that's like, come on. And the worst part is that the entire time she was telling Jason, you're an idiot. You're so stupid. Leave the strategy to me. I know what I'm doing. Don't think for yourself. Listen to me. And made him feel like a total anything. He wasn't smart enough to come up with any decisions and think of any strategy. He was the one who had the right idea all along. She's she really is accountable for him losing.
Yeah. And then ultimately, she was the person all season long. Paul's brand is friendship. He can't go against friendship. That Paul, that what would he have if he went against friendship? But ultimately, she learned the lesson the hard way.
Friendship? No. Guppy? Yes.
Yes.
I've never gotten on board.
Stop using those phrases.
Yeah, exactly. That was her whole downfall, was starting to use these phrases as if they were something more than what they are.
Paul's brand is Gumpy now, Brent.
I know.
His whole brand is Gumpy.
I would have liked to have seen her be a little bit more hardcore with him and, withhold her jury vote. I mean, look, that never works, but at least try it. Don't willingly say to Paul right after he says, I'm not going to use the veto on you, to say to him 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, well, I'm still going to vote for you. And I'll go to jury and make sure that everybody else is going to vote for you too. Which is what she did.
Because he has more power over her than she has over him, because he's still going to be on the live feeds. That he could be campaigning for her to win America's favorite player.
I guess
that she can't have that go off the table, Brent.
It was just really frustrating because I really wanted her to tear Paul a new asshole. I wanted her to just really go after him there and call him out for what he is and make him own his game. And then I would have been, I would have been maybe a little bit more happy if Paul ends up winning the game a week from tonight. But I never really got what I wanted out of that. I was just very frustrated by it, Melissa.
Now, a lot of people were upset tonight, myself included. We didn't get to see any goodbye messages for Alex from the I'd be interested to know if that we ever do goodbye messages on these sort of like surprise eviction nights, or it's just for whatever reason they didn't do that. Melissa, do you know if that typically they do goodbye messages? I know that it's not really a surprise, but I feel like that they try to give off the impression of like, oh, this is shocking, this big thing that's happening right now. There was no time for goodbye messages.
I don't know. I don't know if they usually show them or not. I thought that they did because I vaguely recall them showing them, but I don't know. All I know is that I had hoped that they would show them because I thought maybe Josh might reveal something in his like he typically does. So, you know, I was kind of hoping for that, but I don't know. Maybe they'll take them after.
I can't remember. I don't think that Austin was the one evicted at the final 5 during BB17, and I don't believe that he got goodbye messages from anybody, especially from Vanessa explaining her vote, because she had just explained it when she had evicted him. So maybe it's something that doesn't happen. But I will say that if they don't normally do goodbye messages, I wish they would have, because Josh has been using it as a tool. But on the other hand, he knows that production is the one who chooses, you know, what and where they show from his goodbye messages, and they didn't show anything this time.
So let's talk about the mechanics of this split vote that we saw Paul ultimately vote to evict Kevin. How did that ultimately come around? Because we know Paul didn't use the veto on Alex. Then why did he vote to ultimately keep her and have Josh break the tie, Brent?
A little bit unclear. Feeds went down, obviously, on the day of the eviction, which was yesterday. But from what I have been able to discern, Josh was contemplating evicting Kevin, and he wanted to pull one over on Paul and keep Alex and basically expose everything to her. He was vacillating between doing that or staying the course and just taking a shot at Paul at the final 3. So I think what happened is that he asked them to do a split vote, telling Paul, look, I'll evict Alex. But in the back of his head, he's thinking maybe I might change my mind and ultimately evict Kevin. Obviously, in the end, he decides to go along with the plan and evict Alex. I don't think Paul gained anything from this anyway. I know that Taryn and Lita were going on about it, that Josh played it the worst possible way he could have. But again, I don't think that Josh lost anything, and I don't think that Paul gained anything by pulling off this split vote, because Alex knows what the truth is. Paul would not use the veto on her when he and her could have both been safe. Him giving her a sympathy vote at this point is just totally meaningless. And I know she didn't.
Is Brent being a Josh apologist again, or do you agree that this was not poorly handled by Josh?
I agree. I think that like he probably shouldn't have done that if he really wasn't planning on evicting Kevin, but I don't think it really truly hurts him. I think it does make Paul look better than he would have looked if he had just voted Alex out, because then Alex can be like, you know what, at least he gave me a vote. If it wasn't for Paul or for Josh and Christmas, Paul would have kept me. It was just their jury votes and they were threatening him and blah, blah, blah. So I do think that it makes Paul look a little better, but not really a significant amount that it really makes a big difference in Josh's game. So
yeah, just to be clear, I do think that Josh played it not as well as he could have, but and I'm not picking on them, but on the morning show, they were like, this was the worst he could have played it. And I'm like, I guess, but it's sort of like 6 of one, half dozen of another. I don't really feel like that he gained anything here. Paul, I'm talking about by doing this. And I don't think that Josh really lost anything, because Alex knows where Paul's heart is anyway. And the fact that he tried to hide behind a sympathy vote, I think just makes him look like more of a coward, actually.
Okay, so if Josh and Paul are in the final 2, where does Alex's vote go, Melissa?
Paul.
Votes for Paul to win.
Yeah.
She votes for Paul unless she has her mind changed in jury enough by the other people coming in there and talking with Jason a little bit about what really happened, and the fact that Paul was never with them, the fact that Josh exposed in his goodbye message to Jason that him and Christmas and Paul are in a final 3 alliance. And then, of course, if that's what happens, if Kevin gets evicted at 4 and they go to the final 3, what Josh said looks to be truthful, and Whistle's going to believe him and tell Alex about it. I do agree with Melissa that 95% of me thinks that she's going to vote for Paul in the end, but I think that there's a 5% chance that she could vote for somebody else.
Yeah, I think it's very small because I think that, like, I agree with Brent. There is a small chance that maybe she'll be convinced by people in the jury house. But I think that Alex has said that she doesn't want to be a bitter juror and she wants to vote for who played the best game. So I think that if it's Paul versus, Christmas, or Paul versus Josh in the end, or even Paul versus Kevin, like she'll be like, Paul played the best game and I don't want to be seen as a bitter juror. So here you go, Paul.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when we get an update on the jury of who is sort of the champion for Paul in the jury house and who are the people that are the most anti-Paul. And I really feel like that when you get Whistlenut and Alex back reunited, that I think that there's going to be a lot of like, I told you we shouldn't have listened to Paul. Oh, bro, no, I know. I should have listened to you. I feel like that the two of them are really going to start to feed each other's ideas of, yeah, we shouldn't have listened to Paul. Paul did us dirty. We would have been in the end. So I think that will be fascinating to watch how the dynamic goes in the jury.
I agree. Something's going to have to happen, though. Alex is going to have to flip her vote, or somebody else is going to have to flip their vote, because as I see it right now, even with some of this bitterness towards Paul and the fact that maybe he's playing everybody and some people aren't inclined to vote for him, I still see 5 almost locked in Paul votes versus Josh, and those votes are
who are those votes?
Matt and Raven,
Alex,
Kevin, and Christmas. All 5 of those people I don't believe would ever vote for Josh over Paul, and that's Josh's problem in going to a final 2 with Paul. Obviously, he's going to cut Paul if he has the chance at final 3, I believe, but if he does get taken by Paul, it's going to be an absolute mountain for him to climb in order to try to get to 5. I can get him to 4 pretty easy. But I cannot get him to 5.
Okay. We saw Paul ultimately win the final 4 HOH tonight in another runaway. Do we believe that both Christmas and Kevin were throwing the competition to Paul, Melissa?
No, I think they were just really terrible.
So that Paul just dropped this whole thing of, hey, let's throw HOHs at the final 4 when that had been sort of his MO the entire game of organizing who was going to win the HOH?
I mean, they talked about it, Melissa.
The fees were down, but
right, exactly. That's part of the problem. Yeah, the fees were down, but I know that Paul had talked previously to Josh and Christmas about this, and he was like, he thought there's no way that Kevin would go for it, that Kevin wouldn't be that stupid. I actually thought that there was a way for Paul to get Kevin to throw it, and that was to tell him, look, you have to, I have to win this one. You have to stay sharp for final 3 HOH. Obviously not revealing to him that the person at final 4 can also play in the final 3 HOH, because Kevin really doesn't know Big Brother all that well. So I thought that would have worked, but he didn't try it, and it turns out he didn't need to, because he obviously smoked them. Obviously, I have a problem with the fact that this is yet another competition that Paul has played before, that Paul wins again. I just have a problem when you bring back vets and play the same competitions. He's played this competition before, and you bring in a bunch of recruits to play with him. So then he knows what to look for as the season goes on. He knows to listen to all these stupid little speeches that happen in the house and in the goodbye messages. Hold on.
What about your boy Josh? Super fan Josh.
What about him? He couldn't even play.
Well, they didn't organize this knowing that, okay, we shouldn't, like Paul, that we know that Josh will not be eligible to play this round. So let's play this at final 4 when we know super fan Josh can't play.
Whatever. I mean, like, you have the tinfoil hat or you don't, and I got mine right here. So
yeah, I think that we're gonna find out. I think at least Christmas was throwing this one to Paul. I want to talk about the strategy moving forward. Now, we don't know who has won the veto. Is that correct at this time, that the feeds will come back later on tonight and then we will know who is holding the veto as all that is confirmed?
Yeah, I think they're coming back around 9 p.m.
Okay. So we don't know who ultimately have the veto. That person is going to ultimately have the final say in who is going to be up on the block, and then they will be we'll say it could get complicated if Paul wins the veto, but he's also the HOH, and he would decide ultimately who the one person casting the vote is going to be. And the conventional wisdom is that Kevin is going to go out. Is there any wisdom in Paul splitting up the final pair that's out there and keeping Kevin alongside Christmas or Josh?
Oh my God, yes. Of course there is. Yes, that would be a great move for him. Actually, I think there is a somewhat decent chance. I know that you don't think so, Rob, but I think that it's like at least 20% that Christmas would actually take Josh to the end over Paul when she sees all those dollar signs in front of her face.
No, I don't think she would do that.
Okay, fine. But Josh definitely would cut Paul and take Christmas to the end. So if he split them up, then they would both definitely take him to the end. Kevin would take him to the end. Christmas would take him to the end. So there is something to be said for that. Look, nominations don't matter at Final Four. So, I mean, I feel like I can just tell you guys that there is a small spoiler that's been exposed, that the same guy who's been spoiling everything all season, the same guy who spoiled that Megan was the quitter and all that. So he has said that Paul nominated Kevin and Josh for eviction. That Christmas right now is the sole vote to evict, but obviously those plans can change. Whoever wins the veto. If Paul wins the veto, that gets really funky then, because I feel like Kevin would expect that Paul would use it on him to allow him to be the vote. And if he doesn't do that, maybe that's a way that Josh can get Kevin's vote. But I still think that that's a tough slog.
I think the best move for Paul would be to put Christmas up on the block, have Kevin it'd be tough to get Kevin to be the vote to evict her. I think he would evict Josh in that scenario, unless Paul tells him what to do. Because much like Tony in Survivor Cagayan, I think that Paul could put Christmas on the jury and she would still vote for him in the end, no matter who he was sitting next to. And I think that could be another person to put on the jury that is definitely in his corner. And then Josh and Kevin are never going to work together. I feel like that seems like the best case scenario, where I feel like that going to the final three with Josh and Christmas, I feel like that there is that scenario where Josh could take Christmas with him to the end. I'm not sure if he would take Kevin to the end.
I don't think that he would necessarily take Kevin to the end. Although if Christmas was suddenly evicted at the Final Four, I do think that Josh would actually take Kevin to the end.
Antagonize him.
And cut Paul at Final Three. I mean, Josh knows he cannot beat Paul point blank and the period. So I think he'll go to the final two with anybody not named Paul at this point. I do agree with you that it's a good idea for Paul to break them up. He's not willing to do so for two reasons. Number one, he's had his heart set this whole time. Tara and I have talked about it. Other people have talked about it, that he cannot lose again. And he only sees Josh as his true final two GOAT, Melissa. That's the only person he can see himself going to the end and definitely beating. Even Alex was feeding into that this week. Alex was saying, Kevin might beat you, Christmas might beat you, Paul, but Josh will definitely sweep again. So that's what Paul was already thinking anyway. So he's definitely going to want to take Josh to the end of the game. And number two, he doesn't see the fact that Josh is the person who's most willing to cut him. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
How does anybody think that Kevin would beat Paul in the end? I don't get it.
Melissa, the same reason he thought that James would beat him last season. He's like the nice guy who didn't do anything, who didn't get any blood on his hands.
But also he created this hate around Kevin. Like he made everybody hate Kevin.
I think he's thinking of like Cody, Elena, Mark, like those people who don't really dislike Kevin, and he's not willing. Like Paul wants to win 9-0. He doesn't want it to be like 5-4, 6-3. He already had a 5-4 vote go to the wrong way. He doesn't want to do that again.
I just feel like he's convinced Kevin to throw pretty much every single competition. And basically, he's convinced Kevin to sit in a room and not strategize with anybody and not talk to anybody. And you'd think that would be like the perfect person to take to the end, because they didn't win any comps, so they can't argue that. They didn't strategize or play the game at all, so, you can't argue that. So I don't see why he thinks that. I mean, Christmas is a great speaker, and she also injured herself, and she still would win competitions, even though they were, thrown to her or whatever. And she got her way to the end when people thought she'd be out long ago. I mean, she had surgery in the house. So I don't see why they think that Christmas or Josh is someone. I mean, Josh won competitions even without people throwing to him. So these people, I just don't get it. Like Kevin is Paul has set it up so that Kevin is the perfect person to take the end. And yet he's not wanting to take him to the end.
Yeah, he wants him out at 4. Honestly, honey, I think this is just his inexperience showing. I mean, I know he played Big Brother last year, and I know he's played the whole season this year, but he still doesn't, he's not a fan of the game. He doesn't recognize the fact that someone like Kevin, even though they look sort of moderately threatening when you sort of look at them through like foggy lenses, that nobody's ever really going to vote for somebody like that at the end of the game.
Hold on, Brent.
What?
Okay.
Oh, what?
So how are you the same guy that Karen is going to win Big Brother Canada, and now you're saying Kevin is never win? Kevin, forget about Kevin. He can't ever win.
I didn't say I have to be consistent.
All right. I want to get to some of your questions. Hashtag RHAP. Anything else from the episode that you guys want to touch on tonight? Of course, we have one more eviction night coming up on Thursday. And then we also have, again, I love the recap episodes of Big Brother. We should have another fun recap of the recap coming up on Friday night this week. So first of 3 RHAP episodes back to back coming up this week. All right, let's get into the question. Was there anything else?
No, I was just looking to see if there was a veto spoiler, but there has not been one released yet. So
okay,
we don't know.
All right, let's take some questions. Scott St. Pierre putting this all together. Lucky Sports Guy 99 said, how did it benefit Josh's game by making it a split vote? I don't know if that he wanted that option, I guess, that he wanted to potentially spite Paul, and he thought about keeping Alex in the house. That from what I understand, we don't know in the final if Paul ultimately wanted to give a sympathy vote for Alex. Was that talked about at all?
I think it was moderately talked about. Like Christmas was saying, well, you can vote to keep Alex, and then we can make it a split. Josh had talked about that. He said he'll take the heat for it.
Paul, if you want to vote for him.
I know. Yeah, that's not my problem with Josh, and I do love Josh, but he talks such a big game to the cameras and in the diary room, and then when he has the chance to make a move of his own, he doesn't make it. I know it would have been a horrible move, but it would have been a move of his own nonetheless, and that was somewhat disappointing that he didn't take it.
I mean, it would be nice if we could get through one eviction without Josh being hysterical.
I even said right when he was about ready to break the tie for Alex, I'm like, Josh, please don't cry. Just one time. Just don't cry. And then I'm like, oh, God, he's off to the races. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Do you think that Kevin and Christmas both threw that HOH to Paul, or was Kevin actually trying? So what is your final? I say Christmas was throwing, Kevin was trying. Melissa, what's your vote?
I mean, I guess I could see Christmas throwing it. People were saying in the chat that every time she got it wrong, she was like nodding her head like, oh yeah, okay, good, I did the right thing. But I didn't
take it that way. I looked at, she was embarrassed that she was getting them all wrong from my point of view. Like she was just like, oh, another one wrong. Like, I can't believe I did it again. I will contend that unless I am shown something differently, which I don't think we're going to because it's already taken place. Maybe they'll show it tomorrow, but they usually don't have enough time. That if Paul got either one of these two people to throw anything, I think he's totally capable of doing that. Whether or not he took the time to do it or not, it's another story. I think they are just that bad.
Okay. This is from Heather. Why do you think Alex didn't see the goodbye messages? This seemed to help Paul's game and hurt Josh's. We're still waiting for confirmation, unless the chat has the answer for us, of whether or not they typically do any of the goodbye messages in this spot. I think that might be the reasoning here, because I'm sure that Big Brother would want to show the goodbye messages, Brent, unless you want to put the tinfoil hat on here.
No, I think that there is a reason. I mean, I think that they would want to show the goodbye messages. Maybe they just didn't have enough time to. Or the other issue is that they might have exposed to the house guests that it was a surprise eviction by asking them to record the goodbye messages earlier, because usually they ask the house guests to record goodbye messages on Wednesday, I believe. So if they suddenly got a please record goodbye messages on Monday directive, they would have, been expecting.
Yeah. The chat seems to confirm they didn't get them for Victor. They didn't have them for Frankie. So on this surprise eviction, they don't tip off the house guests by having them record the goodbye messages. All right.
But then do they record it after? I mean, like record it after and then show them like a little.
So it's so weird too. You know
or?
what? I know what you're saying, because sometimes the house guests talk about that, where they're like, "Well, I had to go in and record goodbye messages for so and so who got evicted during the double eviction." But on the other hand, Brendan Brendan and Rachel told us that they don't hear goodbye messages other than what is said on stage with Julie Chen.
I kind of interpreted from his comment. I mean, obviously he can clarify. I interpreted that he meant they didn't see anything further than what was shown to us when they were on stage with Julie Chen. So maybe they show that to them in the jury house, but they on their DVD or whatever. But they don't add like the full goodbye message.
Right.
I don't know. I guess he can clarify that for us.
Okay.
Maybe they in the jury house. If I had to guess, I'd say this is what it is. So when they go back with the DVD, maybe they see like the whole like the televised footage from the eviction, and they get to see like the interview with Julie Chen, and maybe they watch that whole segment with the jury. You know what I'm saying? Like when they pop in the DVD, they actually they watch a little bit more than we see on the TV show.
Okay,
that's what I'm thinking. But I mean,
definitely
you can tell us.
Yeah.
Okay. Then Mom Shell wants to know, how excited would you be if you lost the Final Four HOH? Christmas was elated. I mean, she really was,
she just
so
wants
quick
Paul to win.
She just wants Paul to win. She didn't want Kevin to win.
That's
that was
just
the main
it.
thing. Yeah. It could have been her or Paul. I think she would have been happy. She just didn't want Kevin to win and mess up their plans for their team. Remember, it's a team sport, Big Brother.
Yeah. Okay. So Sarah wants to know, why is everyone saying it's a game? Get over it. It's $500,000. It's okay to be upset for a while, right? I guess so.
Yeah, I'd be pissed.
Pissed.
Yeah, if someone was like, I always think about this too, because you have ride or dies in the Big Brother house, and you think, oh well, I would just have a ride or die. But a lot of ride or dies are lying to each other. They're not really ride or dies, especially when they realize that they can't beat you. So if my ride or die came to me and said, Brent, girl bye. Like, I mean, if they were like, you're out, I'd be like beyond mad, and I wouldn't do anything to try to get them to change their vote. Of course, once I was eventually evicted to the jury, I would rant and scream about it. But I would like to think I'd vote for the best player, but I wouldn't I'm not going to make it easy for them to get me out of the house. I'll put it that way.
Right. Okay. Alex says, what are your thoughts on the chances for a bitter jury? I mean, we've talked about that. It really is very hard to fathom the scenario. The only one contingency, and tell me if I'm saying anything out of school, the only contingency we come up with where Paul doesn't win is that if at Final 3, Josh was to win the Final 3 HOH and say, Paul, I vote to evict you, and then he gets Vanessa, that's the only scenario. It's hard to imagine Paul losing the jury vote, correct?
It is unbelievably hard. Again, he's gonna need to lose a vote in Alex. I feel like that's and look at how much of a Paul, knee sucker Alex has been all season long. With Paul, she would have to cast a vote against him, or Kevin would have to vote against him and for Josh. I just don't see that happening. I feel like if it gets to a jury vote, it's more a magnitude of like how much Paul wins by, not if Paul wins. I do also worry that even if Josh is able to pull up that move and cut Paul at the Final 3, that there is a chance that he could lose to Christmas in doing so. I really worry about that, Melissa. If he is able to do that, I hope he really sells that move to the jury as a game-winning move. Like, look what I did. I got the biggest player out. I did that. He needs to do that. If he doesn't do that, if he cries and talks about how much he loves,
sorry.
He can't do that. He can't talk about how much he loves everybody. And
he
that won't
needs
work.
to be like, look at this. I was able to pull this off when no one else could do it.
Right. Yeah. That's what he needs to do.
I actually think that Christmas versus Josh in the Final 2 would be interesting, because I think that Christmas would be so indignant to Josh. Like, how could you do that to Paul?
Oh, yeah.
We had friendship with him the whole season.
He was
how could
our
you
friend.
do that to him? It might be like the most like hard that any Final 2 has ever been on each other, where he's like, you disgust me. You are a terrible excuse. You say you're a human being. You're not. You're scum. You are scum. I will rape your soul.
It would murder your family.
It will murder your family.
It would be such a bastardization of the game if Christmas won after telling them, please don't take me. And then when she gets to the Final 2, she's like, please don't vote for me. And they give it to her. I mean, I could see that happening.
And then cut to Brent on finale night. I told you she had surgery. They shouldn't have let her phone in a vote from the hospital. I told you this was going to happen.
Did you see her tonight, by the way? She was like, when Julie called them all to the room for the surprise eviction, Christmas was walking without her crutches. She was just hopping around on her boots.
Wow.
These guys are so sick.
Just faking it the whole time.
Yeah, I played this at the beginning of the show, but let me just touch on this one more time with Christmas when Julie asked her to talk about the comic books, because the nervous laughter here for Christmas when she talks about how they call her a lunatic was like she like really wanted them to say to like ha 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 ha, you're not a lunatic, but it didn't come. This is Christmas talking about this.
But I love the fact that they named me a lunatic.
What is that? I mean, I'm not a
Yeah,
lunatic, right?
you can even hear.
I mean, right. I'm not. That's so crazy.
You can even hear the question mark in her voice because, like, I love it that they made me a lunatic.
What?
Like,
What
is that
But
something
I
that people
love
are
that they
saying?
named me a lunatic.
right?
Like, are they really saying that?
Juju, what you doing? Yeah. Yeah. They're like, don't call me crazy. Okay. Mark Burner says, has Kevin set himself up perfectly for a second place finish? Hard to see that. I feel like that would be quite the long shot, right?
Yeah.
At this point.
Again, the audience, it's so funny because the layman audience sees what is the truth of the matter, which is that Paul should get rid of Josh at the Final Four because Josh is willing to cut Paul. But it's the opposite. Paul wants to hold on to Josh and take him to the Final Two, take him as far as he possibly can in this game. And Kevin is really destined for a fourth place finish. If you're just watching the show, you're like, well, Josh has to go out at 4 because he's, a strong male. He's able-bodied. Obviously, Paul's going to want to keep, the old man and the girl with the broken foot to go to the Final 3, but not so much. Kevin is in danger of going out here if he doesn't win the veto, he's gonna.
Yeah. What a run for Kevin, though. I don't want to write the premature game eulogy for him, but I think that there was some talk about this earlier in the season of this archetype, this older character. They don't win, but boy, they do go far in the game. I mean, their average placement, when you look at the Rennies and Jerry's and Big Brother Canada Karen, and I mean, this hey, I'm the one person in the house that's much older than everybody else here. They go far, Melissa.
Oh, yeah, they do. I mean, it makes sense. Like, they're easy to compete against. They're not going to win. Kevin is literally the perfect person to bring with you to the Final Two, and yet, for some reason, Paul's not going to do it. And I think that it's clear that his one downfall is he has a lot, but his one main downfall is that he doesn't know who to take with him to the Final Two and who he will win against. Especially if he loses again this year, that'll be just he doesn't get it.
His one problem to me is that he has a bit of an ego. He thinks he can win any competition at any time if he wants to win it. And, you saw by the results of this Final Four HOH competition that he just absolutely blew them away. And you could after every correct answer, he's like, one of these with the fist pump every time. He's like, oh, I have to win this. So I think that just feeds his ego that he can win anytime he wants to. Melissa, I don't feel like he ever feels like he's going to lose a competition. I feel like he thinks he's going to win Final 3 HOH. He's going to evict Christmas at 3. He's going to take Josh to the Final 2 and walk away with the money. He just doesn't. And I think he even brought it up on the feeds, but I don't think he's really wrapped his mind around the fact that you cannot game the Final 3 HOH Part 3. It's just not gameable, and you could easily lose that. And I don't think he has reconciled that yet with his belief in his own game.
Yeah. Well, maybe he figures that he'll just get everybody to throw it to him.
Well, the funny part, I was going to say, some crazy competition like that, you could try to be throwing it and accidentally win. I can't even predict what these people say.
Not for anything. If Paul can get Josh out here at the Final Four, I'm pretty sure that he could tell Christmas and Kevin to throw the Final 3 HOH to him.
Yeah, they do it.
I think Paul wins the game. If we're 24 hours from now, if Josh is saying the only way Paul loses the game is if Josh wins the Final 3 HOH and evicts him. So if they could get Josh out here at the Final Four, Paul wins.
But Josh has done a good job of making sure that Paul is not really on to him. I know that there's been shades here and there of Paul possibly figuring out that Josh might have said something to Alex about the fact that Paul is a strong player, but Josh has been able to beat the drum enough so that Paul believes that Josh is not really a threat to him. And so kudos to him for that.
Yeah. Real quick about the BB comics, which we barely touched on tonight. Any standouts or duds in this year's batch for you, Brent?
I
There were
have
a lot
to
of
say
duds.
there were a lot of duds. I mean, look, let me talk about the good ones first, then we can talk about the duds. I thought that the good ones were Mark and Jessica. Those to me were the best. I thought the incredible sulk with Mark's tears and Jessica as the hex symbol, I thought was just so apropos. It was just so great, and I love it that it irritated the house guests because they depicted Jessica as like this sexy heroine, and the rest of them in the house is like these idiot villains, which
Like
of course,
toilet mouths and
Right.
Wiener girls. So
Can someone please explain to me how Kevin is the merman? What am I missing?
there's so much more to him than just dressing up as a merman for one.
Oh, from that
Oh,
competition?
that's what it was? Going back to when he hosted the
Yes.
week 1 veto?
Yes, it's because that one image of him going
I thought he was
around
in the pool all the time.
No,
Oh
it's
my
because
god!
the image of him was going around like the internet, where he's like sunning himself on the rock, and with like his eyes closed or whatever, and you know that's been going around, and there you go.
Well, a couple things I wanted to say also. They gave Cameron a BB comic and Megan did not get one. Yay for that. Finally got that one right. Even though they didn't get the memory wall right, they finally got the BB comics right. So good for that. And I love the fact that they basically just shit all over the remaining house guests in the house and didn't give them anything good. And they also were so lazy too. Like, Rob, please tell me, how did they miss not making Matt the serial killer? How is that possible? They made him the silver fox.
It's so easy. It's like, why did you overthink it?
And then they made Whistle Nut.
He's the Whistle Nut.
That's so lame.
And Raven.
The Raven was terrible.
There's so much more to make fun of her for than just that.
I didn't even recognize her because like she had the costume over her head. She looked freaking terrible. The comic was terrible. Girl, bye.
Every single one was just so disappointing. There was so many things that I was hoping they might touch on, and I feel the same way that I felt when Zingbot came out and didn't make fun of anyone for the things that they could have made fun of them for the entire time. They just made fun of stupid stuff.
So what do you think? They're taking it easy on them, or do you think that does the person who draws the BB comics, do they know the story, or is it just sort of like that, just like the day before they get like an email of like, okay, make Paul is potty mouth, this is this person?
Yeah, I wonder who writes it, because I wonder who comes up with these, because it's totally possible that they're like, they tell someone who's like a casual viewer, or they tell them like just brief little things like, all right, Paul cusses a lot and he yells at people, and last time he had some sort of motor mouth comic, go. And it's like, that's all they get. And so they're like, I guess potty mouth. And
I mean, are we overrating how good the past ones were? I mean, this week we had the Revengers, and I guess we celebrated that, but we had people like Elfit Vic, like
I mean, I feel like the first year that they did it, like BB16, I think was the first year they did it. That was exciting because they had never done it before, and they like had these life-size comics of them, and I felt like they were really calling them out on certain things. I don't remember what they all were now looking back on it, but I just remember being like, oh man, they're going to find out that so-and-so was called this, or that so-and-so is called that, and what their reaction's going to be. And now it's just like, oh, he's a meatball because he said that a lot, or, oh, he's a silver fox because he has gray hair. Cool. That doesn't reveal anything. It doesn't make anyone realize like what their perception of them on the outside world is, which I also feel like is a really cool thing that Zingbot does, is make people know what their little like quirk is that the outside world is like latching onto. And instead this year it's like, okay, Matt really likes cereal, and now he's going to talk about it forever, and he only has one t-shirt, and now he's going to talk about it forever and try and play it up, and now it's not funny anymore.
Yeah. Well, I guess, if they're in on the joke, then these comics are going to make them more in on the joke.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was more an indictment of the players themselves. Like the season has been relatively boring, and I just don't think that the artists could do much with these people, or they just didn't try. Maybe that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Wesley says, out of the remaining house guests, who has locked up votes in the jury, and whose do they have? Who's the biggest wild card jurors? We don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but is there anybody that we feel like in the jury we really have a bad read on?
I think Christmas would probably be the person I would have the worst read on, or even Josh, because I'm not sure how much credit they're giving him for his gameplay or if he's like being carried to the end. I would like to think that these tiebreak votes and, you know, even casting a vote against Whistlenut would help him in that they're starting to see him more as an honest to God player in this game and not somebody who's just being carried along. But if Alex and Raven sort of get their story straight, which Taryn and I talked about, and Melissa on the Live Feeds roundtable about Paul trying to continue to play the game in jury, then I don't know if they'll be able to figure out exactly what the real truth is.
Can I revise an earlier statement I made in this episode tonight? So I said that if Paul can knock out Josh here at the Final Four, then Paul automatically wins the game. Is it possible that if that were to happen and Josh ultimately does not get to the Final Three with his team, could he potentially be the person to go to the jury house and stir up enough animosity in the jury house against Paul to really get everybody worked up and not vote for him, where he's just like, yo, Paul, he would play that and just like spill everything?
I think that he wouldn't do that because I think that it's not that he doesn't respect Paul's game or that he thinks Paul played a bad game. I think that he recognizes that Paul is a very strong player, and that's why he knows he has to take him out because he can't beat him. So I think that if he goes to the jury house, he'll say, you know, Paul was a great player. You know, he was amazing. And I think he would vote for him, and I don't think he would convince people not to vote for him.
Right, exactly. The only way that Josh is going to go out at the Final Four is by Kevin's hand. And the only way he's going to go out by Kevin's hand is if Kevin wins the veto. And if that happens, that means Josh is going to go to the jury house mad at Kevin, pissed that he denied him his spot at winning $500,000. And he'll willingly vote for Paul in this spot, I believe. If on the other hand, Paul comes to his senses and realizes he should evict Josh and uses the veto on Kevin and lets him evict Josh, then I think he could go to the jury house and stir things up. But Paul has shown no indication that he's on to Josh or willing to evict him. And so, again, Kevin has to win veto. If Kevin doesn't win veto, Josh, Christmas, and Paul are going to the Final Three together.
You just wait and see, Brent. I'm going to win that veto. You'll see.
Okay, Mr. 45 minutes.
You'll see. You'll see. You'll see.
As long as it doesn't have anything
Brendan.
to do with color, because he's like his whole excuse for the comic books was he's colorblind, and he may well be colorblind, but you know, well, you don't run fast, you don't walk fast, you can't do this fast, you're colorblind. I mean, what can you do?
They should have done something with the Saran wrap for Kevin's superhero.
Yes, that would have been great. See,
they should have done something.
We could write these so much better, and they'd be
Plastic
really funny.
Man or something like that.
I think, Rob, again, it's like you told me at the beginning of the season. They don't care.
They should ask for audience suggestions.
Look, the ratings are. We're so close to it. We follow it, so closely with the live feeds and all the coverage that we do. I really would love to just talk to people that just watched the TV show this season to see what they thought.
My mom.
Has she felt like that this season was boring and predictable, or she thought it was a good season?
She liked it halfway through, and then once Jess and Cody were gone, she was like, this is the worst. This is horrible. Paul is so terrible. He's just controlling everyone, and the minions are awful. Everyone just does whatever Paul says, and it's the worst. We got to get Paul out. We got to get Paul out. So, you know, I don't think that the casual viewers are like totally off. And also I troll the Facebook comments because I know that that's where the casual viewers hang out.
Mm-hmm, yes.
So I read them all, and they hate Paul. And a lot of people love Jody, but then a lot of people also hate Jody. So, you know, you got a little bit of push and pull there, but everybody wants Paul out, and everybody hates that that everyone is controlled by Paul, and that everyone's just one of Paul's minions, and they don't like that. They think it was like rigged for Paul. And so, yeah, I don't think they're that off this year. I don't think that the fan bases are that.
I agree. I agree. My sister and her husband are people that I tell them what's happening, but they basically just watch the TV show. They don't watch the live feeds whatsoever, and they said they really fell out of love with this season about halfway through. Again, after Jessica and Cody were evicted, they were like, I'm out. I kind of know how this is going to end. So I guess the ratings are good, maybe even better than good, but I don't think the fans really like what they're getting. They might just be watching out of force of habit at this point, not necessarily enjoying the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's do a couple more questions. This is from Tina. Please address Alex's drinking the Coke on stage and the spilling of the Coke. Brent, you are the soda expert on the panel. What did you think about Alex leaving the house with a can of Coke?
Apparently that was a slam at Jessica she was the one who spilled the Coke during Alex's HOH reign, or isn't that what happened? Or during
she got her back big time then.
I mean, wait, am I reading that right? Is that what happened or not?
I was wondering what was going on. So, I mean, if that's what you're saying, I'm saying the same thing. Then,
it wasn't. Sorry, it was during Cody's HOH reign, but Alex had the Coke or something. Wait, I don't know. Anyways,
explain this idiotic plan to me.
It's an idiot. I think what happened is there was always a discussion about who hid Alex's cat ears and who spilled the Coke. And I think I'm speculating. This is me speculating. The chat room can clarify, but I think that Alex bringing the Coca-Cola onto the stage was just a little, slight at Jessica. Like, I still remember that you did this to me, even though I don't think it actually was Jessica who did it to her.
I think, Jessica wasn't the one who did that stuff. It was Raven, supposedly, but whatever. I thought that it was just...
Alex is wrong about something else.
I thought it was just that Alex was just trying to, everyone knew that Alex loved Coke. So I thought it was just her trying to be like hey, look at my little cutesy thing, like Matt with the cereal. So that's just what I thought it was, but who knows?
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Alex's chances of winning America's favorite player. That's a Melissa meme. None. Yeah. Are you guys saying that is it Cody and it's done?
Those are so great.
Well, I don't want to say it's done because I want people to vote, but I know I used my 20 votes and voted for Cody. If you're thinking about voting for Jessica, Jessica's already said to not split the vote with her. She wants everybody who's voting for her to vote for Cody instead, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I voted for Cody as well.
Voted for Cody. Kevin, I mean, he really has not been.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with my voting for Kevin, and Evil Dick summed it up on Twitter. Actually, I'm not going to vote for a Paul Sheep, and that's what Kevin is at this point. He has had moments where he said stuff about Paul, but then he goes right back under Paul's wing and does exactly what Paul tells him to do. He sits when Paul tells him to sit. He stands when Paul tells him to stand. I'm not going to vote for somebody like that. He's a sweet guy, but I'm not going to vote for him.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love him, but can't do it.
Give me the last couple of America's Players voters. I want to see if I can predict where the voting public goes. So who was it? Was it Nicole or Donnie in BB16?
In 16, it was Donnie.
Okay, it was Donnie. Okay, and then what about BB17?
That was James because he barely beat Dr. Drill.
Yeah.
Okay, and then BB18.
Oh God, who was it?
Victor.
Oh, Victor. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So to me, it doesn't seem like it's the internet darling of who the fans necessarily want. I mean, certainly James last summer or 2 summers ago was not the person that everybody was going nuts on social media about. It seems like that the casual is really having a big sense. So I could see Cody in that regard. I wonder how the casual viewer feels about Josh, because Josh has gotten a lot of screen time these last couple episodes.
According to Facebook, they don't like him at all. They think he's a crybaby.
Yeah, I guess that he was painted so negatively earlier in the season. So.
And I don't really see a way that Josh cannot end up in the final 2 unless Christmas somehow wins final 3 HOH and chooses not to take him. So, I mean, because Paul's going to take Josh, and obviously Josh would take Josh. So the only way it happens is if Christmas wins, and I don't think that's especially likely at all.
Okay. All right.
And just for clarity's sake, you don't win America's Favorite House Guest if you're in the final 2. Apparently Paul said he won America's Favorite House Guest last year, but because he was in the final 2, they went to the second highest vote person.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what he said. I'm just telling you.
The guy did not get a care package. Okay.
Very gumpy.
Very gumpy.
Yeah, Taryn has a poll up apparently for America's Favorite.
Good.
So yeah, those are pretty accurate, I will say. So
and
people should go on there and answer it. He said currently the top 3 are. He just posted it was Cody and Kevin and someone else.
How many choices can you put in a poll? Isn't it just like 4?
It's Kevin and Cody are pretty close, and Josh is a bit behind.
Okay. All right. And then Brett says, are we safe to discuss the fact that Christmas will beat Josh at this point? Christmas and Josh final 2. That does the panel think that Christmas will win?
I think it's too close for my liking. How's that?
Oh boy. All the precincts are not reporting yet.
I don't know. I mean, I've thought long and hard about a Paul versus Josh final 2, but a Christmas versus Josh final 2. Melissa, I mean, I can't even begin to predict where people like Cody and Mark would go.
I think it really depends on their speeches, because I think that if you were to look at their actual gameplay the whole time, you would probably say Josh. But I think that if you get down to the end and if Josh gives an incoherent, rambling speech like he tends to do, I don't think that he'll get it. I think Christmas is a much better speaker, and I think that she will be able to pull out a much better speech than Josh. So it really comes down to the speeches, which is kind of crazy because normally the speeches, who cares? Nobody really, those don't matter. But this time, I think they actually would.
Okay. I feel like Josh Rob needs to lean on his heart more than anything. I mean, he's not going to have like the great strategy, because obviously that was Paul's role. He wasn't a big physical competitor, but he's got to have the thing of the super fan. The Ian, where you say, I played the game with a little bit of heart, and I really care about this game, and I made the biggest move by getting Paul out. You have to give me credit for that. Give me the damn money. That's what he needs to say.
Yeah, he's got to just come out and really ride the emotion of the night. I feel like that Christmas might be a little colder. No winter puns intended, but I think that Josh could be like, really like, what's going on, meatballs? Like, I think that he could really maybe light up the room. I do think he is charismatic like that, but
right.
We'll see. We'll see. And then finally, Kirsten says, never forget, Aaron Carter tweeted to Jessica Graff, why you gotta be so fine though? I got people telling me you're seeing some guy on a TV show. You still fine though. Uh-oh.
Oh my. Is this the guy who recently came out as bi? Aaron Carter, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Like, I'm Jessica. I'm right behind you. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I had seen that earlier and I was like,
I saw somebody said something about it, but I didn't understand where it was coming from.
Yeah.
Now I understand the context, and I'm like, let me just say.
I still don't understand the context.
Well, I don't understand the context, but I can tell you that Jessica, she even turns my head, and that happens very rarely. So she's just amazing looking.
She's very pretty.
We'll see. What a tangled love triangle we have.
Now we've got Brent,
Cody, Jessica, Aaron Carter, and Brent. Okay. See how this all plays out. All right. We've got a lot going on robinthewebsite.com. Check out the preseason interviews that we posted with Devin and Lauren. Josh Wigler talked to them in Fiji, and find out why Devin is Josh Wigler's new season 35 crush. Watch out, Nick Majorano. Of course, on our latest News AF, Tyson, myself, and Danny Bryson talked about a new artificial intelligence, some new robot in Japan that will tell you whether or not you have a foot odor problem. That's on the latest episode of News AF. On the Bachelor in Paradise finale recap, Amy and Haley will tell you about everything that happened on the final days of the controversial Bachelor in Paradise. And on American Ninja Warrior, Taryn and Lita tell you about what happened on the national finals in part 2 of that episode. And then, of course, more Big Brother live feed updates, because at some point tonight, we will get Big Brother live feeds. And so find out, if you missed it, what's going on with the live feeds with Taryn in the morning. And then tomorrow night, Andy Herron will be joining us. Be sure to let Andy Herron know on Twitter how excited you are to hear him on the podcast Thursday night. So looking forward to talking about when we get down from 4 to 3 with Andy Herron finally this season. Very excited about that. So thanks so much, Scott St. Pierre, for all of the heads up about what's going on. All right. Do we have a hashtag tonight?
We do not.
Okay. Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Chat room. Let's know if we can come up with anything. Of course. Lots of stuff going on.
They're asking for Glen of Temptation.
Glen of Temptation. Well, just to circle back to Glenn, that he is the one person who did not fit in with the older house guests going far. But as Glenn would tell you, I would have won the whole game. I had the whole thing locked up. If it wasn't for that one coconut, Corey would have been gone. I would have been dating and house guest. Yeah, it really who knows how history would have changed had Glenn actually made it to an eviction.
I'm seeing that.
Yeah, I'm seeing stuff too.
You want to hit the spoiler cue?
Yeah, I don't know where they're getting it from.
I don't know where people are getting it from.
All right, let's talk about a rumor that is developing. I'm gonna hit the spoiler just real quick.
The Office of Civil Defense has issued the following message. This is
a spoiler.
Warning.
A spoiler.
Warning means that an actual
spoiler
against this country has been detected and that protective action should be taken.
Brent, there was no dancing. What is wrong with you?
All right, so hold on.
I'm working here.
We have spoilers coming in of allegedly we have the holder of the veto, Abby saying the same guy who spoils everything else. All right, Melissa, what's going on?
Supposedly, Paul has one veto.
Fake news.
No, is it real? So Paul has one. Yes.
Yes. Sorry. Now I see it. Yeah. I don't know why I wasn't updating on the regular thread, but yeah, the same person who spoiled everything this season and has been consistently right about everything, Vegas for sure, on a Reddit has spoiled that Paul has won the power of veto. So that is actually surprising for me because I didn't think he was actually going to go for it. On the other hand, he might have been concerned that Kevin might have been able to win it, and so he had to try to win it.
There you go.
Okay. So what will Paul ultimately do? Do we know the plan, Brent?
I think he will probably leave nominations the same. I think it's earlier in this week, Paul asked either one of them, who would want to send Kevin out at the Final Four. And Christmas said she was ambivalent, and Josh said, give it to me. I think Josh is definitely afraid of being on the block, as should anybody. And that's where they left it. So I would be surprised at this point if Paul did not take Josh off the block. On the other hand, if that's what he was going to do, I don't know why he didn't just nominate Christmas and Kevin in the first place and leave Josh off the block, because he would have to make an affirmative move by using the veto on Josh of all people in front of Kevin and letting him be the vote. I don't think Paul's going to do that. I think he's just going to not use the veto here, let Christmas evict Kevin, and then they're on to the final three.
All right, so we will see what happens tomorrow night when Christmas decides to take Kevin out of the house. And so not a lot of drama. We'll see how Big Brother will try to put some intrigue into this on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think the drama will be in Paul. Like, should I use this veto and take Kevin off the block? Because Kevin has been, Rob, you've heard Kevin on the show. Kevin's been like, Paul's word is good. Every time Paul's told me that something's going to happen, it's happened just like Paul said. So his word is solid as a rock. So now, this is where the rubber meets the road, and Kevin's going to see that Paul's word is not good. He was not planning on taking you to the final two. That'll be fun. So that may be a way that Kevin would not vote for Paul. I can see Kevin voting spitefully at the end if he thinks he's going to final two with Paul. If Paul gave him his word as a man and then didn't use the veto on him, I feel like that Kevin will not vote for Paul.
This guy, Paul, he gave me a bill of goods this whole season. Where I come from, you shake a guy's hand and you're going to be, that guy is going to, you got his back. That's where I come from. But he's not invited to Thanksgiving anymore. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh my God.
Sad emoji.
I don't know how you do that.
Yeah. All right.
That's your best impression by far.
Melissa, are the rumors true that this is your final night with us before the off season?
I think it is. Depending on when we do our final LFC roundtable to kind of like wrap up the whole season. So depending on when we do that, at this point, we don't have that scheduled. So at this point, yes, this is my last podcast of the season, unfortunately. But I'll be back.
To get it out there before the rumor mill started churning of hey, where's Melissa? So Melissa,
I'm just gonna we're gonna Rob, we're gonna have to put out a for help help needed notice because it's just Taryn and me at this point. So
we have a deep bench. Luckily, we have a deep bench coming up. All right, so great stuff. Excellent work this season, Melissa, and we will be back on Thursday night with Andy Herron. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night. Bye.